One of the most challenging things for families, I think, is deciding what gets loaded on the van. You know, how do you pare down two households? What was that like for you, and what tips would you give to families?
Well, I would do it a lot differently than we did it before. Again, back to communication. Ed and I did not communicate. He's a man, he grunts. And so I assumed that that meant, no, don't get rid of things. So one day, as I was preparing for garage sale, as you can imagine, two households combining, and most of my stuff was in my garage, or our garage at the time. And he had these beautiful pots that were copper bottomed. They're beautiful. I hated them. I hated them. They were not mine. I couldn't cook in them. Everything stuck in them. But he loved them, I thought. So in the middle of the night, I had put them in a box to sell, and he had said to me, "Where's my pots and pans?" And I went, "Well, I was going to sell them. Mine are better." He goes, "Yours aren't better, they're cheap." I said, "No, they're better." So, and again, the following night, I'm up at 3 in the morning, and I'm just pulling pans out and shaking them everywhere and throwing mine back in, and he comes down, he's rubbing his eyes, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting your pots and pans out. Now learn to cook with them because that's what you want." And he goes, "I don't care about pots and pans." And from then we started going, okay, we need to go around the house and say, what is important? What is not important? And this was tricky because I couldn't just rip things off the wall, because Andy was almost born in that house, and he'd been there a long time, and so I had to be careful about how I remove things, but I wanted to put us in the house too. So we just walked around and did that sort of together.
So you opened up, I guess, a different type and a different line of communication between one another, where he actually spoke
said
and
yes
didn't
or
grunt.
no, yes.
and you didn't interpret or kind of try and read his mind and what he might be thinking. You actually asked him.
Because that is a danger, the reading of the mind, is especially if you're coming from another marriage.
Yeah.
You have an idea of what they're thinking based on your previous spouse.
Sure.
And it doesn't always work that way.
Well, it might not be the case. They might actually be a very different kind of thinker. So, yeah. So then, did you have the kids participate in that, in the paring down part? You know, helping determine what to take with you, or did you and Ed kind of facilitate that?
We pretty much did that. I didn't want to invite too much of an 8-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old in my house decorating. And the things I knew were important, Ed had spoken about them, like Andy has. I still have the box of bells that his mom collected, crystal bells, and I have them up in his room. Yeah, he still has a room, but he doesn't live there. It's in the closet. But that sort of thing we're careful about.
So taking into consideration the developmental stage of the child when you consider how much they can participate or should participate.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think Andy cared too much about crystal and china.
No, and you know, someday he might though, and so you've got those saved for him.
Right.
That's awesome.